Let's bring in our next guest, Neal Howard. Neal, how's it going?
Okay, Chuck,
nice to see you, sir. InnovaRX.
It's medication therapy management, which means I want to help patients make sure they take their meds properly and take them consistently so they avoid any drug misadventures and unnecessary emergency room visits.
Okay. So we're talking about people that are overusing them or underusing them, or what?
Well, if you look at it, most people in the elderly bracket probably are overusing. They've got multiple.
I don't think it's just in the elderly bracket.
Well,
I know a little bit about these pills.
Most of them have multiple pharmacies, multiple physicians. Neither one of them. They don't know which one's giving what a lot of times, so it's very confusing for the patients or the families to know what to do with mom and dad. And,
because they're all pilled up?
Yeah, basically they are all pilled up. And so I'm trying to
there's a problem with prescription pills in America. And it isn't with just the elderly. It starts out, unfortunately, with some teenagers, okay?
True.
Dabbling in the medicine cabinet. And then what happens is that it's not easily detected. There's no fragrance. There's no ritual to it. There's no cutting it up, no rolling it up, no lining it up, no snorting it up. It's just a pill.
You mean like we would have done in the old days?
Well, not me. I was never really into that kind of stuff, but I understand that some people were. But the pills, they're dangerous. I hate them. Okay, because in America they're easier to get. It's the money's in the medicine, not in the cure, and it's America. So let's just knock it up a notch with some alcohol.
That's true,
right? So
I agree with that.
I really have a real dislike for the pills, and I have personal reasons for that.
Can't say that I blame you, and so do I, from some of the things that happened to my in-laws in their last few months of life. So I want to take care of filling the gaps there in some of their care simply, without a lot of esoteric or difficult things for people to understand, work with them personally one-to-one, figure out what problems they may have, follow up with them on a consistent basis and make sure they're doing things right.
But are they honest with you? Because this is the drugs. These are the drugs, and people get hooked on them, okay? And they don't want you to take them away from them, so they might not give you the right answers.
That's probably true. That's probably true. You have to be able to interpret what information you're getting properly from them.
Well, you can tell by when the prescription is filled and how many they have left.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right?
In my history, I had one patient at a time who was taking 360 Vicodin a month.
Whoa!
She had a couple of kids. Her husband was a high-powered lawyer in L.A., and I was working at a pharmacy. And how
does one acquire 360 Vicodins a month?
Probably,
is it multiple prescriptions? Is it online?
I'm not sure. Back in the day when that happened, there was online, so it was mostly traveling to offices probably and getting multiple prescriptions, and then making sure you didn't fill any at the same place too often, so you would.
I know for sure of a doctor here in town that educates his patients on how to go to numerous pharmacies and double up on or triple up on their prescriptions.
Then that's not anybody I'd want to see.
Right.
Or what I promote their service or their practice, but. It does happen because it's all. And
I'd like to kick his butt. That's what I'd like to do.
In certain cases, it's all about the money anyway.
Hey, how did you get into this, Neal?
I've been in practice. I was been in practice for 40 years. So I started back in.
As a doctor?
I graduated from USC in Southern California in '73 as a doctor of pharmacy. So I was in practice for 40 years. Last 12 I spent at Kaiser here in Fresno. Mm-hmm. Doing what they call drug education coordinating, working with physicians directly to make sure that they used Kaiser's formulary to the maximum benefit rather than brand drugs and things that were much more expensive, so we could control costs.
Okay.
So
you were doing that for 12 years?
Mm-hmm.
So 12 years ago, the Kaiser saw a need for it.
Yeah, they had the program going for quite a few years even before I came on, but it's a good program.
I think it's a very good program. Do all hospitals have that kind of program?
Kaiser is the only one that I know of that does it on a routine basis. All their service areas have a drug education coordinator linked with it.
Give me an example of how it works with you and your patients.
For this?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it would be a personal contact, either by word of mouth or referral. Then I would contact the patient. I'd go to their house, have at least a 60-minute interview with them, a one-on-one with a pharmacist, which is pretty unique. Mm-hmm. And during that time, we'd create a couple of documents that we would use to manage their therapy. One would be a comprehensive medication review, which would take a look at all their prescriptions, over-the-counter medications, all their herbals, and see if there are any things that would either have interactions with them or problems related with them. Then we'd create a medication list, personal medication list that the patient could take with them to their physician, or if they ended up, God forbid, in an emergency room, they'd have a list to give the physicians there that would be current.
So they'd be able to act quickly on and remedy the problem?
Right. And then the last thing would be what I would call a medication action plan. If we determine specific problems, then it'd be kind of like a contract. The patient would say, well, this is what we talked about, this is what I'm going to do as a patient, and this is when I did it, and my job would be to monitor that and come back and forth with them, make sure that they're doing it, and see if there are any problems in terms of meeting the contract, for any particular problem. A lot of times the simplest thing that influences taking things consistently is the patient never picks up the first prescription. I'd have to say it, even in Kaiser we had some examples of that. Patient, they come there, they're there for a couple hours, they see the doctor writes them a prescription, they just don't want to spend more time in the facility, so they go home. And then the doctor has told them certain things to do with the prescription, and then 3 months later when they come back for a follow-up visit, the numbers are still as bad as they were initially, and then if you probably asked the patient and found out he didn't take it, it's a different conversation at that level. Instead of adding something on, you'd have to go back and say, well, if you go pick up this prescription and let's monitor again. So simple things.
We talked about overuse, but there's underuse too, right?
Probably so.
People is it from forgetting, or hey, I'm feeling okay, I don't need this anymore?
I think a lot of people with certain medications, they do feel okay, and they say, I don't need to take my medication this day. A lot of things are what we call silent killers, like hypertension. You don't really see a lot of things manifesting in terms of symptoms, and if you're feeling good, you don't feel like taking your medication. So that's part of the problem. The other thing is it could be as simple as medications in your medicine cabinet. You spend most of the time in your living room. You're just watching TV. You just don't want to get up and go into the bathroom and pick up your med for a day's worth of doses. So
how long are the medications good for?
Usually on expiration dates, they have expiration dates at least 1 or 2 years. At least.
And what happens when they expire? Do they get less strong, or do they get to a point where they can make you ill?
There are very few that would actually make you ill if you took them after their expiration date. Most of them, you lose potency. It means you've lost more than 10% of the potency. So it's still 90% effective. It means you might have to go back into the physician and adjust the dosage a little bit, but it can be managed.
Okay. Now, how does it work? Is it backed up by insurance, or do people pay for your services cash?
Anyone who's in business probably would prefer to have cash up front, which is what I would like to do. So there would be an initial fee for the initial workup, and then there'd be a monthly retainer, in which case for the monthly retainer they would get all the follow-up visits and anything other than...
So insurance doesn't take care of it then?
Some insurances do.
Okay.
It's a case-by-case, insurance company by insurance company basis. So if they do have insurance, I'm more than glad to contact the insurance company, see if they pay for the service, but they're told up front, of course, if they don't pay for the service, then I'd expect you to pay me up front.
I understand.
But I will definitely provide either information for them to build an insurance company themselves to see if they can get reimbursed.
What would be a reason why the insurance would pay for it, or what would be a reason why they wouldn't?
Well, in most cases, the Affordable Care Act requires that patients who are under the Affordable Care Act, which is mostly Medicare patients, Medicare Part D patients, They get a comprehensive medication review at least once a year and an annual wellness visit once a year, plus at least 3 targeted medication reviews over the year. So there is legislation which is not being used to the fullest extent that would allow us to do this. And
will that change in the future, you think?
It depends what the Supreme Court says. I know there's something up in front of them about 6 words right now, and I don't know what the 6 words are in particular, but I'm hoping that it'll stay in force. My feeling about the law itself is it doesn't really say a lot about what specific care people are going to do. It was basically aimed at providing access for those that never went into the office and never had any modicum of medical care at all, or chose to stay in the backwoods and not go into the office. So to me, it's basically about the law is basically about access, and not giving people access I don't think is the best idea possible.
I don't either.
So
how do they get a hold of you?
They can reach me on my website is under construction, as most things are. They can reach me by calling 559-908-2742, or they can drop me an email at drneal@innova-rx.net.
Cool. Last thing. Can you show me how to tie a bow tie?
Oh, I think you want me to do it without a... I could.
Can you do it? Do you have to look in a mirror when you do it?
I usually do, but I can tell you how it goes.
Okay, I would love to see it.
Let's take it apart.
Can we bring it in a little bit on the doctor? This is amazing.
And I don't charge extra for this. If
Okay, it just drives me batty to look at it. Okay.
Let me see what I do. So you cross it over just like you do a regular tie.
Push it up, through.
Push it up. And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to get upset.
Okay, I won't either.
Put this one here. All right, I'm not even sure I can do this here. Let me do this.
How long have you been wearing these ties?
Probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, they're great. Every time I see you, you've got an absolutely beautiful tie on.
And it would go back here, and this one would come up front, and that would go behind, and it would be...
All right there. Neal Howard, thanks for coming by.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, give him a call. Neal Howard, his number's right there on the screen. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back on The Buzz. Stick around.